Okay, so I'm looking at my sort, my selection sort method here, and Gabriel is trying to show me how to make a resizable window using the surface.setResizableTrue command, basically. Yeah, this is a little bit weird. So this is calling, like, if you had to classify what is this object, or what is this thing doing?
It's taking the surface object and running a set resizable method.
Yeah, so this is going into the surface object, whatever the hell that is, because I didn't declare it, right? And then it's doing the set resizable method in there, and it's passing it the value true, which apparently takes whatever the heck the surface is and sets it to be resizable, right?
That makes sense.
Like, that makes sense. And supposedly this is a way to make your window resizable. So if I use this, oh, you see this kind of weird behavior on the right-hand side here? Where it's not filling that up, that chunk. But if I go down a little bit, it'll pop it, and you might notice after fiddling with this that that pop-it is about 100 pixels. And there's about 100 of these little bars in there. So if you think about it for a minute, you might realize that probably what's happening is those are all being rounded to integers in their width. And so then you might say, well, clearly something idiotic has happened. Probably the width of that thing is an integer. So you go down and you find, okay, so my rectangle's width is delta x. So then you go look around for the delta x variable. It's up here. It's a float, though. Okay, I don't get it. Where the hell is delta x? All right, so, okay, so there's one right here. That's where it gets set to width divided by the number of numbers. And then it's here. That's in where the rectangle is. And then it's here in how wide the rectangle is. And then it's back up at the beginning where it's declared as a float. So the only spot in the code that it actually gets masked with is right here, which is when it gets set to the width of the window divided by the number of numbers. See that? To figure out what's going on, print line delta x, right? Okay, apparently it's 6. Oh, and then if I resize it's 7 or 5 or... Oh, but that's not a float. You see that? It's not acting like a float. It's acting like an integer. So what the hell? What's it made out of? Well, it's made out of an integer divided by an integer, which processing normally very happily makes a float. So if I go look at my window, right now my window's set to be 653 pixels wide because I was messing around with this. So if I put 653 right here, it still does this weirdness, right? Like, for some reason, this is doing integer math right here. And I don't know why, because normally it doesn't play that weird game with me. So, I found a fix for this, which was to typecast, to force width to be a float, and then divide by the number of numbers. And that now it's going to do float division. Right? And so now I should get exactly right. You guys see this? Okay, so that's a little bit screwy. I'm not quite sure why it's not playing nicely in this one case. But this is a good trick to know. Right? This is called typecasting. We haven't done a ton of it in processing because, honestly, processing normally plays really, really nice. The only other time we did a typecasting type thing was where else did I do a typecasting in here? Yeah, I forced it to round randoms to integers, right? And the way I did that was I just typecast them into integers. So that's not a totally foreign thing, but usually you don't have to do that in processing. I'm not quite sure what's up with that one. The poor man's typecasting is if you know what the number is, right? So instead of putting a variable here, right, instead of having width here, I can put 653.0, and now 653 was an integer, but 653.0 is a float. This is how you do typecasting in Python. What's that?
Could you do width 0?
Probably not. Yeah, my guess is what you could do. So if you have your width here, my guess is that I can force this by doing the dumbest possible typecasting. Right, I can't do width 0.0 because that's not a variable's name that it'll recognize, right? That would try to call the 0 method on the width variable or object. But I think I could probably do width plus 0.0.
That's so dumb.
So that is the dumbest method to typecast, but it's a useful trick to know, just FYI.